Okay, so you know how it is, right? Like if you're anything like most of the people we hear from trying to grow a YouTube channel, when you've already got a full-time job, maybe you've got kids and just all the other stuff life throws at you, it can feel pretty impossible.
Yeah, it's that whole feeling of how on earth am I supposed to make this work? And I think that really resonates with anyone who's ever tried to chase a big goal when they've already got so much going on.
Totally. It's like trying to build a house with only an hour or two free each day. And that's exactly why we're digging into a super interesting source today that might just have a shortcut for us. We've got the transcript from a video by Ruri Ohama, and her story is kind of mind-blowing. She took her channel from 0 to 100,000 subscribers in just 3 months.
Wow,
And then get this, to 1 million subscribers in 2 years.
that's incredible.
And here's the thing, she was doing all of this while she was presumably dealing with other commitments too. You know, it's not just theoretical advice, it's someone who's actually walked the walk.
Yeah, Rory's basically gone through all the trial and error, so hopefully we don't have.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to pull out the most important, actionable insights from her experience.
I like it. Sort of a cheat sheet for success.
Exactly. Our mission today is crystal clear. We want to give you a practical roadmap for growing your own YouTube channel in 2025, even if you've only got an hour or so to spare each day. We're going to zero in on what Ruri herself says are the things that really move the needle.
Love it. So where do we start?
But to kick things off,
Yeah.
what would you say was the biggest lesson Ruri learned early on? The thing that really changed her whole approach?
Well, she talks about this experience she had early on, and it's something I think a lot of people can relate to. She spent a ton of time, like 15 hours, meticulously editing this one video, and she was so excited to share it. But then it only got like 47 views.
15 hours.
Yeah.
For 47 views. Ouch. It's gotta hurt.
Yeah, it's a real gut punch. So it made her realize that something needed to change.
So what was that critical realization? What did she figure out she was doing wrong?
It was all about where her focus was. You know, she was concentrating so much on making her videos look amazing and super polished instead of thinking about whether they were actually something people would want to watch.
Right, she got caught up in the aesthetics instead of the substance.
Exactly. And that brings us to what I think is one of the most valuable things she shares in this video. She breaks down YouTube growth into 3 core areas that really matter.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay it on me. What are these 3 magic ingredients?
Well, in Ruri's view, success on YouTube comes down to 3 things. First, you've got to create content that people actually want to watch. Second, you need to make titles and thumbnails that make people want to click. And third, you absolutely have to understand your target audience and the unique value you bring to the table. And she says everything else is secondary, especially when you're just starting out.
I love how she gets straight to the point. No fluff.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into that first one. Creating content that people actually want to watch. Now, Ruri has a pretty strong warning here. And it's about who not to look to for inspiration when you're first starting out.
Yeah. She says, don't just try to copy what huge YouTubers are doing. People like Mr. Beast or Alex Ramosi or Matt Diavella.
Because it's tempting to think, hey, if it worked for them, it'll work for me too.
Right. But Ruri has this awesome analogy. She compares it to trying to run a marathon before you've even learned to walk. You know, they're playing at a whole different level. They've got way more resources and completely different goals at this point.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's like trying to play in the NBA when you're still learning how to dribble a basketball.
Exactly. And Ruri even mentions how her channel's goals have shifted. She's not just focused on getting more subscribers anymore. She's using YouTube to grow her overall business.
Makes sense. So if we shouldn't be copying the giants, what is the very first step Ruri recommends before we even think about buying a fancy camera or editing software?
It all starts with self-discovery. You've got to really understand your own unique identity as a creator and figure out why anyone should care enough to watch your videos. She's super honest about this, you know? She says when you're unknown, people aren't searching for you by name. They don't even know you exist.
Yeah, that can be a tough thing to accept, but it's so true.
And Ruri admits that she fell into this trap too. You know, for years, she was so focused on copying others that she didn't take the time to figure out what made her special.
And she doesn't want anyone else to make that same mistake?
Exactly. So she breaks it down into 2 questions that everyone starting out on YouTube needs to ask themselves.
Okay, hit me with those questions. What soul searching do we need to do?
The first question is, what makes you different? Now, Ruri's quick to point out that this isn't about having some crazy, never-seen-before talent. It's about the unique blend of your background, your experiences, your personality. Just the things that make you you.
I love the example she gives, like a
Right.
student who's become a master at something on the side, or a parent who's a total time management ninja. It's those everyday things that can often make you stand out.
Absolutely. And then the second question is even more important. Why should people care?
Oh, that's a good one.
This forces you to think about the value you're bringing to the table. Are you solving a problem? Offering unique insights? Do you have a way of explaining things that people just connect with?
So it's about shifting the focus from what you want to talk about to what your audience actually needs.
Exactly. And once you've answered these questions, Ruri says the next step is to create a one-sentence mission statement.
A mission statement, like those corporate things.
Sort of, but way simpler. This is about defining your unique selling point, or your USP, Ruri's formula. Ruri gives this handy formula. I help specific audience achieve specific result by specific method or value.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like a mini manifesto for your channel.
And she even shares her own past mission statement. I help ambitious individuals overcome self-doubt and achieve their goals by teaching time management techniques.
You see how clear and focused that is? You immediately know what she's about.
Right. And then she says this mission statement should guide everything you create. It keeps you laser focused on your core value proposition.
I like it. A North Star for your content. So once you've got that mission statement nailed down, how do you actually start creating content that aligns with it and attracts viewers? I think that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah, and this is where Ruri drops another truth bomb. She says, when you're first starting out, people aren't searching for you specifically. They don't know you yet. So those personal vlogs about your day are probably not going to get much traction.
Yeah, it's back to that question, why should a stranger care about my random Tuesday afternoon?
Yeah. Right. So she says, ditch the personal stuff for now and focus on creating content that directly solves problems your target audience is facing. For example, instead of my daily workout routine, it's how to lose weight without the gym. Instead of a productive day in my life, it's how I build a side hustle without quitting my 9 to 5.
So it's about being helpful and giving people tangible solutions.
Exactly. And she says, as you start to solve people's problems and build credibility, you'll naturally start attracting viewers.
And then you can start to sprinkle in those more personal elements.
Exactly. So how did Ruri come up with these problem-solving ideas in the first place?
Yeah, what was her brainstorming process? Spill the beans?
She had a really cool system. She'd set aside 1 hour every week, usually at a cafe, to minimize distractions, and she'd just brainstorm. She'd start by making a list of every single thing she'd achieved in her life. It could be anything, a fitness goal, a work accomplishment, learning a new skill.
So just brain dump all her wins.
Yep. And then she'd group them into broader categories. And here's the key. She'd imagine herself as someone who was just starting out in those areas, and she'd think about all the questions and struggles they might have.
So basically reverse engineering her own success. I like it.
And her initial niche language learning was a perfect example. You know, she learned several languages without spending a fortune on courses. And she knew tons of people were looking for free ways to learn languages. So that's what she started with, providing free value.
And then she branched out into other areas she had personal experience with, like managing ADHD and sharing the systems that worked for her.
And here's a great tip for people who might feel like they don't have enough experience in any one area. Ruri says become a human guinea pig.
A human guinea pig? What does that even mean?
Basically, pick something you're genuinely interested in learning more about. Then immerse yourself in it. Read books, talk to experts, take courses. Then put what you learn into practice and document your journey.
So it's like you're taking your audience along for the ride.
Exactly. And she uses her video on the marshmallow test as an example. You know, she learned about it, tried it out herself, and then shared her experience.
I love that. It takes the pressure off needing to be some kind of guru right from the start.
Yeah.
Plus, it's way more relatable. You know, people can see you're figuring things out just like them.
Especially because, as Ruri points out, if people wanted cold, hard facts, they could just ask an AI. They watch human creators because they want that personal connection.
Right. It's about the human experience.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked about creating valuable content. Now, how do we actually get people to see it? That brings us to Ruri's second core element, crafting titles and thumbnails that make people want to click.
And here's where things get interesting. Because Ruri emphasizes that when you're short on time, you can't get bogged down in making every single video a cinematic masterpiece. You know, spending hours and hours on fancy editing.
So it's about prioritizing efficiency over perfection.
Exactly. The goal is to get your message across in a clear and engaging way without getting lost in the weeds.
So how do you actually do that? What are her tips for streamlining the editing process?
She's all about the 80-20 rule, you know, focusing on the most important stuff.
Okay, Remind me how the 80-20 rule works again.
So in this context, it means focusing first on filming what she calls your A roll, which is basically the meat of your video, your main talking points. And then she says use tools like Descript, which is this cool AI-powered editing software. It can automatically clean up your audio, remove filler words and repetitions, and you can even edit by changing the transcript.
Well, it's super cool. So it's like you're editing text instead of video. That would save a ton of time.
Exactly. And once you've cleaned up your audio and script, Ruri suggests using AI like ChatGPT to help you come up with ideas for B-roll footage. You know those visuals that you can layer over your A-roll to make your videos more engaging?
So AI can basically help you create those cool visual elements without having to spend hours filming or searching for stock footage.
Exactly. It's all about using technology to your advantage. Now, what about equipment? A lot of people think they need a fancy camera to start a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
What's Ruri's take on that?
Yeah. Do you really need to drop a ton of cash on a camera right away?
Ruri says absolutely not. Unless your phone's camera is truly terrible, she says your priority should be good audio.
Makes sense. Bad audio is a way bigger turnoff than slightly grainy video.
Exactly. And she actually has a free guide with microphone recommendations for different budgets. As for lighting, she says keep it simple. Use natural light by filming near a window, or get an affordable softbox if you need to.
So simple and effective. Okay, let's talk thumbnails. We all know how important they are. Ruri mentions that she still uses Canva for 99% of her thumbnails, even though she's got over 1 million subscribers.
Which just goes to show that you don't need expensive software or design skills to create effective thumbnails. It's all about understanding what makes people click.
So what are those magical ingredients? What makes a thumbnail irresistible?
Ruri says there are 3 main things. First, you need clear and compelling text that makes people feel like they're about to discover a secret or a powerful solution. She's big on high contrast, too, so the text really pops. Second, keep it visually simple. One clear message, one strong central image, and any extra elements should just support that main message without cluttering things up.
So it's about conveying a clear benefit or sparking curiosity without overwhelming the viewer.
Right. And then the third element is incorporating subtle emotional cues that match the overall vibe of your video. You know, your facial expression in the thumbnail can actually make a big difference.
So how does she actually go about creating these click-worthy thumbnails? What's her process?
She always starts by identifying what she calls the story hook of the video, you know, the biggest transformation or the most surprising insight. Then she focuses on creating visual contrast, often by using numbers or before and after comparisons. And she's a big fan of using psychological triggers to get people clicking.
Like what? What are some examples of those psychological triggers?
Things like creating curiosity gaps. You know, phrases like, nobody else tells you this, or using authority markers, like mentioning your subscriber count if it's relevant. And then there's the power of proof, showing people that your method actually works by including a little screenshot of your results.
It's all about making the thumbnail so intriguing that people can't help but click.
Exactly. Ruri says she personally prefers clean, simple backgrounds, bold text, and always making sure the thumbnail clearly communicates the value of the video.
And she had a great bonus tip about using numbers in thumbnails.
Yeah.
Make them specific and believable. You know, $7,500 instead of just a generic $10,000.
Yeah, people can smell BS a mile away.
Okay, so we've covered creating valuable content and making it clickable. The third core element Ruri talked about was understanding your audience and your unique value proposition. We've touched on this a lot already, but it really seems like this is the foundation that everything else is built on.
It really is. You've got to constantly be refining your understanding of who you're trying to reach, what their problems are, and how you can uniquely help them.
Now, as your channel starts to grow, you might start thinking about outsourcing some tasks. You know, to free up your time, Ruri has some great advice on this.
Yeah, she warns against outsourcing too early, you know, before you really know what you're doing, because that can be a waste of money.
And you also don't want to wait too long and end up burning yourself out.
Exactly. So when it comes to editing specifically, she says, consider outsourcing when you're consistently making enough money from your channel to reinvest some of it back into the business.
Makes sense.
And also when you've developed a clear editing style that you can easily explain to someone else. And of course, you need to have a steady flow of content ideas to keep your editor busy.
She also points out that good editors aren't cheap.
Yeah.
You know, they often charge at least $100 per video, and sometimes even $250 to $300 or more.
Yeah, so it's a serious investment.
Okay, so let's talk about time management. How do you actually fit YouTube into your life when you've got a full-time job and other responsibilities? Ruri's pretty candid about her own struggles with this.
Yeah, she admits that at one point she only uploaded like 20 videos in a whole year because she was trying to do too much, setting unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, we've all been there. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of posting multiple times a week,
Mhm.
but then life gets in the way.
So her first tip is to track how long it actually takes you to make one video from start to finish, from brainstorming to uploading. Once you have a realistic idea of that time commitment, you can set a posting schedule that actually works for you.
And she emphasizes that it's way better to consistently post one high-quality video every 2 weeks than to burn yourself out trying to post every week and then disappear completely.
Consistency is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And she's got this great tip for making the most of that hour a day you have to work on YouTube.
Yeah, she suggests breaking the entire video creation process into daily tasks. So, like, Monday could be for research, Tuesday for scripting, Wednesday for filming, Thursday for editing, and Friday for brainstorming new ideas.
I love that. It makes it feel so much more manageable.
It's all about breaking it down into bite-sized chunks. Now let's talk branding. Ruri has some really interesting thoughts on this.
Yeah, a lot of new YouTubers get really hung up on having a fancy logo and a professional intro right away. Is that really necessary?
Ruri says no. Don't waste your time on that stuff when you're just starting out. She admits she spent way too much time obsessing over things like that in the beginning, and she realized it didn't actually help her grow.
So what should you focus on instead?
Just the essentials. She says, make sure you're consistently communicating your core message, that mission statement we talked about, and keep your visuals simple but consistent.
Like what? What does she mean by simple but consistent visuals?
Pick 2 or 3 main colors that you use consistently. Use the same font for all your text overlays, and try to have a similar style and color palette for all your thumbnails. You want people to recognize your videos at a glance.
But it doesn't have to be super fancy or complicated.
Nope. Just keep it clean and consistent, and as your channel grows, your branding will naturally evolve.
Okay, so don't stress about branding too much in the beginning. Just focus on making awesome content. Right. Ruri also talks about the importance of working smarter, not harder.
Oh, yeah, she's a big believer in that. She says a lot of people think that just spending more time on a video automatically makes it better, but she's found that's not always true.
Sometimes the simplest videos perform the best.
Exactly. And she actually shares an example of a video she spent weeks working on that flopped. And then another video that she made really quickly went viral because it just had a really clear and valuable message.
So it's about quality over quantity
Mm-hmm.
and being strategic with your time.
Exactly. And one of her top tips for managing your time effectively is to block off a specific hour each day to work on YouTube and really stick to that schedule, no matter what.
Treat it like an important meeting that you can't miss. Okay, and last but not least, we have to talk about perfectionism. This is a huge hurdle for so many creators.
Ruri actually calls perfectionism the biggest killer of YouTube channels.
Ouch. I think she might be right about that.
She says almost everyone's first few videos are going to be kind of rough. And that's totally normal. Even the biggest YouTubers started somewhere and their early stuff wasn't always great.
It's comforting to know that we're not alone in that. So what separates the people who succeed from the people who get stuck in perfectionism and never even start?
It's all about having the courage to just hit publish and get your work out there. Practice in public. Embrace the fact that you're going to make mistakes and learn as you go.
And she says most viewers don't expect perfection, especially when you're first starting out. They're more interested in the value you provide.
Exactly. Unless you're specifically teaching filmmaking or something, your videos don't have to be super polished.
So what's Ruri's advice for overcoming perfectionism?
She says, focus on your USP, create content that solves problems, keep your production simple and consistent, and just get started.
Love it. Just hit publish and see what happens. Don't let perfection be the enemy of good. So let's recap everything we've learned from Ruri Ohama's incredible advice. When it comes to growing a YouTube channel with limited time, it all boils down to understanding your unique value. Creating content that solves problems, optimizing your titles and thumbnails for clicks, and being realistic with your time and expectations.
And the big takeaway is that you absolutely can build a successful YouTube channel, even if you're juggling a busy life. It's all about prioritizing the things that really matter.
Exactly. So here's a final thought for you. Take some time today to think about your own unique experiences. What challenges have you overcome? What skills have you mastered? What problems are you uniquely qualified to help others solve?
Everyone has something to offer.
Even if you don't see it yet. And then think about one small step you can take today to start building your channel. It could be anything. Writing down some ideas for your mission statement, brainstorming some video topics, even just watching a tutorial on how to use Canva to create thumbnails.
Every journey starts with a single step.
Exactly. So get out there and take that step. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been fun.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.